All right. I just wanted to share a little bit of a recent trip that I did to East Africa, to the beautiful country of Uganda. And I was on the River Nile. You guys know about the River Nile and the biblical stories, but I was there at the source of the River Nile and the beautiful Lake Victoria. Anyway, this is not what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about our course, MGSC2207, and the sort of remote delivery of that course. I apologize for not being able to be there with you on the very first class because I have a family matter to take care of. And so as a result, I have to um, travel for 2 days and I'll be back on Friday. So I want to just sort of go over the course outline with you, tell you about the expectations of the course, and pretty much give you some guidance in terms of how you do well in this course. All right. So I'm going to switch over to my left monitor here where I have the course outline. Now in D2L, do have the entire course laid out with the um, you have the entire course laid out, sorry. Let me just get my, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. You have the entire course laid out with the links to the videos that you're supposed to use to follow the material. And so the way in which the course is actually designed is designed for you to be able to do it as a self-directed course. In fact, this is the same content that I use for my web-based course. And next semester, the students that sign up for the web-based course, I will actually have exactly the same notes. So the only difference between the web-based course and this course is that we are meeting online to have questions, discussions, and some demonstrations and so on. So you have that added advantage over those who are doing the course completely asynchronously online. Now, if we look at the course outline, a couple of students did actually message me. This is the same outline for section B and section F. Section B is actually in-person, on-campus. Section F is remote, synchronous. And so I put a link there for both sort of Zoom links for section B. And that's because I sort of was giving consideration to whether or not I want to be able to be in person with section B, but also have a Zoom link in case someone wants to join the class but is not physically on campus. So we have that there, but I haven't decided if I'll do that on a regular basis. And then, of course, the link for you to join me remotely is the link for Zoom for section F, as you can see over here. All right. We'll have office hours online, and in some cases, I will have some office hours in person, and that will be specified a little bit later. The course, the way in which I teach it, whether or not it's online or whether or not it's in person, is that I flip the classroom. And I think it's important for you to know that because not everybody may necessarily like that approach. And so if you feel that that approach may not work for you, you have an opportunity to change the section. So what is a flipped classroom? The flipped classroom essentially is an approach that says that instead of lecturing you in a classroom, why don't we use classroom time for validation of learning, to understand, to see if you understand the material, and then to provide some assistance to you while I am available with you in the classroom. The lectures are given to you in the form of videos, so that way you already have all of the lectures. I have pre-recorded all my lectures, so essentially you have all the material for this course, and you could basically do this course on your own without any interaction with me at all. And that's how it's set up so that the students next semester who are taking the web-based course are going to be able to do just that. And we've done it for the last 5 or 6 years anyway. All right. And so it means that you have to come to class prepared by watching the video note lectures and making your own notes, just as you would have done in a classroom, but you have to do that at home. Schedule your time, you have the flexibility, sit down in a nice quiet location and actually follow the lecture. You actually have the lecture, right? I'm going to skip some of those and just go straight to the table that shows you the sequence of topics and the video notes and so on. So that's important stuff. So you can see here where I'm calling each week a module, module 1, module 2, module 3, and the topics that are covered in that module. Notice that module 1, you're on your own, which means that basically you're responsible for following that module by yourself because it is relatively easy and straightforward. You would have done a fair amount of that stuff in high school. Understanding basic things such as data types, the difference between a population and a sample, things like data presentation tools such as bar graphs, pie charts, histograms, stem and leaf plots, and so on. So that kind of sort of data presentation is something that you would have already encountered. And so I figure it's just a review for you. So rather than using up a whole week on that, you could actually do that literally in about an hour or so. Okay? You will see that before class, that means that because I'm flipping the classroom, you will have to watch the video lectures. So here are the links to the videos, as you can see. So data types 1, data types 2, and then we have the actual chapter. Now, in terms of practice problems, you do have workbooks in D2L that I've posted. So if you look there, workbooks with solutions, you could actually take the questions and then practice those or practice any of the questions out of the workbook. That's totally for you to do. And then the test hours schedule. Now, unlike other courses, I'm not going to give you any assignments, no midterm. What we're going to have and no like final, because this is the typical structure: 5 assignments, a midterm, and a final. In this case, I am not going to do that. I've decided that I'm going to give you 6 tests spread throughout the course. 1 test practically every 2 weeks. In other words, a test is based on 2 modules, right? And when you do that test based on those 2 modules, that's all you have to study as those 2 modules. When we finish that, we move on to the next 2 modules for the next test. So you're not going to be tested on those modules that you've already completed. This is an approach that the students tend to like. I've gotten positive feedback on it because you only need to study 2 weeks of material at a time and then do the test. 2 weeks of material, do the test. As opposed to trying to do 6 weeks of material for the midterm and then the entire year for the final. I do believe that this method allows you to do concentrated kind of studying, and at the end, you will actually learn more than if you were trying to cram an entire semester of material or 6 weeks of material at a time. All right, so I do believe you're going to like this. In terms of, as I mentioned, you already have all of the lectures right here, and your job is to make sure that you set aside some time to watch the lecture, make your own notes before coming to class. If you're going to come to class expecting me to do a lecture, you will be disappointed because that's the traditional method. I'm not practicing this method. If that is not going to work for you, you do have some time to sort of withdraw and change your section to a more traditional section. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, among those of us who are teaching statistics, I might be the only one who is flipping the classroom. All right? So please decide if you're going to stay. And if you're going to stay, you have to be committed to the idea that you're going to prepare your notes prior to class. So what do we do in class now? So in class, I will give you questions to solve and then go around the room seeing how people are actually understanding the material And if there's some challenges, then I focus on strengthening the understanding of those challenges. Or if you have questions on a problem that you're working on in the class, then I could come around and give you support. So it's much more like a tutorial, much more like a workshop, and less of a lecture. So I do hope you like that concept, because that's essentially what it is. All right. So even though we're not meeting tonight, you actually have the lectures for tonight already. First of all, you would have had to do module 1 on your own, and tonight we would have discussed measures of location, measures of variability, and there's a sample problem for you right here. So I like you to actually go through and follow that, and you'll be totally prepared for the test. So module 2 is what we would have covered this week. And so as a result, you can do that on your own and be prepared for the test. All right, that's pretty much it. Now, in terms of the usual stuff, let me just show you the number of tests and then the marks allocated to the test. So if you look, there are 6 tests, and as we go through the semester, the tests are getting harder because the material is getting more complex. And so you see we start off with the first 2 tests at 10% each. Then test 3 is 15, test 4 is 20, test 5 is 20, and test 6 is 25. So very manageable. Oh, I should mention one last thing, is that test 6 will be scheduled during the exam period. However, I will make the test open to you before that, so that way if you want to do it early, you certainly can do it early. The other thing that you will need to know is that the tests are all done online, but you have to show your work for the questions. So you will need to sit with your computer, have sheets of paper, and you need to look at the question number. If there's a particular question that requires computation, look at that question number, jot it down, and then do your working. After you finish with all of your work and you submitted your test, you must now submit all of your work in a Dropbox for me. We're going to use that for validation to make sure that the work that you submitted is consistent with the questions or the solutions that you provided. And so as I mentioned, test online, you have to show you're working, you have to upload it. I've given you some instructions where you will get an app that could actually scan or take a picture of all of your pages. Make sure that your ID card is at the top of your page. And then you assemble all of the pictures into a PDF file that you upload to the Dropbox in D2L, okay, for that test. The Dropbox will be open only for a certain amount of time after the test is finished. And so if you fail to provide your work, it will be treated that you did not do the test. So it is very important that you submit your work immediately after the test is completed. Now you do have some time to take the pictures and create the PDF file. That's fine. But I just want you to know that you cannot come 3 days later and expect to submit the work. That is not going to be acceptable. All right. The tests are going to be open from Saturday mornings from 12:01 a.m. and close at 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. So you essentially have 2 days over which you can do the test. You will schedule a test at a time that is convenient to you. And the tests will be typically anywhere between 90 minutes and 120 minutes long. They'll be anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours long. All right? Other than that, I believe you could read the rest of the course outline and follow it. It's fairly straightforward. Some students have asked me about the textbook. There's an e-text that you can get. The 14th edition is kind of what a lot of the examples are based on. If you get a 15th edition, I'm sure a lot of the same content is in that 15th edition. You don't have to get a 15th edition. Some students have asked me, should they buy the text? I will not tell you to buy a text or not to buy one. But if you may want to say, let me take a look at the notes and let me see if the notes are sufficient for me. And if the notes are sufficient for you, then you could decide that it's okay to, if you're performing well without a textbook, continue that way. But some students do like to have a book where where it's tactile. I try to minimize the cost of the text for you because textbooks are very expensive, and so that's why there's the ebook option. The only thing about an ebook is that you buy it, but you may have it just for one academic year. So if you didn't pass the course, and let's hope that doesn't happen to you, then you'll have to purchase the book if you decide you're going to repeat the course with me. Now, I should tell you that stats is not coordinated. The textbook that is being used by Professor Davod is different from the textbook that I'm using. And then there's Prof. Melissa Sad, who will be teaching one section. I'm not sure which textbook that she's going to be using either, but she may very well use the same textbook that I am using. So our approach will be different, and but if you do want the more traditional lecture method where you come to class, you lecture, take notes, go home, and then figure things out, I would say the other two sections are the better ones for you. All right. So we'll be in touch. Your job tonight is essentially to make sure that you've gone through the notes for module 1 and also the notes for module 2. And that will prepare you for our first test, which is somewhere towards, I think, the 25th or 24th of September. So you will have like another week to prepare for the test. So when we complete the module, there's a 1-week delay before you actually get the test, and gives you some time to study. The performance in the course over the last couple of years that I've been doing this have been excellent. Average is over 70%, and I expect you to continue that pattern. Also, the failure rate has been down because of that, and so I do expect you to continue that pattern of good performance and also a very low failure rate. Okay, if you have any questions, please send me an email at harvey.millar@smu.ca. Thank you very much, and I will see you next week.